I'm very privileged today to introduce to you Danielle Williamson. She is a licensed professional counselor and a certified Live Life Fully coach. The challenges of systemic barriers and emotional abuse ignited her passion for empowerment within her community. Her blog creates a safe space for others to find comfort, understanding, and strength to build confidence and self-worth. Congratulations for having your story published in Authority magazine recently, titled Strategies for Rebuilding Life After Trauma.
Mhm.
So many of us in the healing professions come here through our own need for healing. What were the
Yes.
traumas that you experienced that led you to seek healing?
Um, so I definitely think this last trauma was probably like the catalyst for so much. And I definitely did not see that coming or happening in that way. Which has been very interesting actually, because I definitely think there have been previous traumas. And I think for whatever reason, it was this one that really caused me to realize and decide that I needed to face all of them.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so it was definitely this most recent going through the emotional abuse for sure that set the tone for so much more.
So, in your process, have you been able to identify beliefs or experiences or concepts in your childhood that led you into an abusive relationship?
Absolutely. Um, and what's interesting about that question is I think through the years I've always known that there was some type of childhood something attached. Um, but I chose to overlook it. I chose to kind of ignore it essentially.
Yes.
Um, and again, it was this one that I think really was defining and set the tone. But I will say, to answer that more specifically, um, I think for me, what I've realized, it's always been the not having a sense of worth. So the not feeling a sense of worth led me to put myself in situations that probably weren't the best, led me to accept things that were less than I deserved. And I think the low self-worth was probably a need to fit in. I think through childhood, I think there were several moments where I didn't feel like I was fitting in. So when I realized that I could fit in, depending on how I acted or things that I did, I kind of ran with that.
Yeah.
Um, ran with it and kept going until it got to the point where I was like, okay, this is not healthy or good for you, and it's time to do something different.
Well, we just survive our childhoods however we can manage to do it,
Correct.
don't we? And
Correct.
sometimes it's just needing to fit in.
Hmm.
So you turned your healing into a vehicle to help others heal. You listed several choices you've made that were pivotal to finding out your authentic self.
Hmm.
One was ending communication with your abuser. Would you mind sharing a little more about that?
Um, mm, the kind of tricky part of that is, yes, ending the relationship with that individual, and at the same time kind of figuring out how to navigate still having some type of connection.
Okay.
Um, so right before I decided to end the relationship, we had actually just decided to rent a home together.
Hmm.
So for months after that, there still had to be some kind of communication. And there actually still is to a very little degree. So there's been the challenge of no longer having communication, but still kind of having to communicate in battling with the struggles and the challenges of that. But I definitely think that limiting and ending it to as much of a degree as I could was the absolutely best way to go with that. And again, it was the difficulty of this is a good person in some ways, and there were things about this person that I enjoyed,
Hmm.
and realizing that no matter how much good there was at times, that overall it was not good and safe or healthy. Um, so it's been a journey of really kind of recognizing and overcoming and remembering in spite of that, that it just is not something I need to be involved in.
I imagine it's harder to let go of a relationship when you know there's good in it as well as things that are detrimental to you.
Absolutely.
I would imagine that would mean setting some kind of boundaries,
Mhm.
like
Absolutely.
new rules for the new relationship with this person.
Absolutely.
What kind of boundaries have made that possible for you?
So for me, um, I think the biggest boundary has been keeping communication to what's needed.
Hmm.
Um, so if it has to do with the house that we were renting, if it had to do with the furniture that we purchased together, keeping it about that and not having it become more conversation.
Yeah.
Um, because I think that can be easy to do at times, in realizing again that it's just not a space where that is possible or where that's an option.
So you avoid rehashing all the old arguments by
Mhm.
just keeping your communication to what's absolutely needed for now.
Yes, or starting new arguments for that fact.
Okay.
Yes,
Another choice you mentioned was that you return to having your own therapist to therapy.
correct.
Tell me what that continues. Is that continuing, and how do you support yourself with uh, your therapy?
So yes, it is absolutely still continuing, and probably will be for some time, because I think there will come a point in time where I feel that I'm ready to start dating again, and I think that's going to be a whole another like journey to experience and go through. So I'm going
Yeah.
to need her for a while. Um, um, I think the way that has been helpful, because interestingly enough, before the relationship ended, we actually went to her together. Um,
Oh,
so it transitioned from couples to now individual. And I think that's been helpful because she knows him to a
yes.
degree. Um, and I think now after it, and being a lot more open with, okay, this is the reality of what was actually going on in the relationship, even though we didn't talk about it, it gives her a new perspective and understanding. And I think there were things that she probably noticed and realized in that dynamic that now we can actually talk about. Um, and it's been very helpful. And I think maybe the biggest part of that is still kind of reckoning with the fact that it was an abusive relationship. Um,
Okay.
and I think that has been something that, as much as I knew, I didn't accept, or I didn't like sit in. So it's been a lot of like, wow, like that really happened. Um, okay. And she's been very helpful in I guess kind of like normalizing the fact that what I'm realizing now is like, for therapists, for helping professionals, like it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon, so it's been very helpful getting her perspective and her understanding of that, and helping me to make sense of it myself.
I think in the helping professions, we kind of come into it because our heart is a desire to sacrifice ourselves in
Correct.
order to help someone else.
Hmm.
When that goes too far, then it does become we attract abusers
Mm. Hmm.
because we're so eager to be helpful.
Hmm. Yeah.
Well, you state that your passion is helping others recognize their worth and prioritize their well-being,
Hmm.
encouraging them to take charge of their lives. Does that mean that taking charge means to stop blaming someone else for your unhappiness?
That's a great question. Um, hmm. To a degree, yes. But I think the bigger piece of that is realizing that you have power regardless. So like, yes, these situations happened. Yes, we get into unhealthy relationships. And I think there's a need to remember that in spite of all of that, there is always power. There's power going in, there's power coming out, there's power in reclaiming who you are. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, I think yes and um yes and I think what's coming up for me is like there's also this piece of I think that we other people are not always at fault. So we get into situations, or I will speak for myself, I get into situations that I know aren't the best, I know aren't healthy, and that's because of my own stuff. So
Yeah.
it's like, yes, it's unfortunate that this person did this and that's what happened. And what have I done, or how could I do things differently to prevent this from happening again? So there's power in like acknowledging, like, okay, perhaps there's something going on for me that I need to dive deeper into as well.
What advice would you give a woman who finds herself in a relationship that's abusive today?
Mm. Lean on your support. Lean on your support. I think as much as I've always known I had a support system, I think I forgot, or because I was so concerned about protecting the relationship and protecting him that I didn't let people know what was going on. So
Yeah.
one thing, and actually it's been a conversation with my friends, it's like no matter what we are going through, we are here. And gratefully enough, I have a group of friends that are very non-judgmental. So remembering and knowing now that no matter how like yucky the situation may be, I can go to them and we can have a conversation about it, and there cannot be judgment, and there can be very helpful feedback and encouragement and support that I probably absolutely need.
Being, it requires real courage to be vulnerable and to let
Yes,
people know that you're hurting.
absolutely.
Sometimes that's the first step to finally admit that you're hurting.
Absolutely.
Danielle, I have so much respect for the choices you've made to
Mm,
take control of your life, to empower yourself, and then sharing your journey with others who need you as a model.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I want to thank you for spending these few minutes with me today. And I hope that everyone who's listening to this video interview will also read Danielle's article in Authority magazine titled Strategies for Rebuilding Your Life After Trauma. Her name again is Danielle Williamson. Thank you so much, Danielle.
You, I appreciate it.
You hope you have a wonderful day.
Likewise, likewise. Have a great one.
Bye bye.
Bye.